Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Marowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey, and I'm excited that I get to talk to you today, not only about our platform and what micro-internships are, but today's focus is really about how you can leverage this platform to create some accessible opportunities for yourself. So throughout the webinar, I am going to keep an eye on the chat. I just put a note in there so you all can see where that is. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in that chat. I'm usually pretty good about being able to keep up with them live, but if I get behind, I promise I will catch up at the end. And for those of you who have already taken the poll, you can see that we're starting with acknowledging some of those challenges that you are not alone in facing if this is something that's presenting itself as a barrier to you. We see a lot of students who are struggling with a lack of time, a lack of transportation, having a hard time figuring out how to get their foot in the door, are looking for ways to explore that don't involve a long-term commitment off the bat. So if you're going through that survey or poll and thinking, man, I feel a little bit of all of these, again, you are not alone. These are common challenges, and that's why they ended up in the poll and associated with the folks on the screen. They let us know, hey, these are some things that we're facing. Now, the good news is micro-internships on the Parker Dewey platform are designed to help you address these challenges. Now, again, today's webinar is really going to be about how you can use our platform to create your own opportunities. But I want to do a quick recap of exactly what the opportunities you can create with Parker Dewey are. So, what are micro-internships? In short, they're short-term paid professional projects. They're always focused on a specific deliverable as opposed to ongoing responsibilities. So, ongoing tasks or responsibilities are those things you're typically going to get assigned in like a traditional internship or a full-time role. These are the things that you're responsible for doing. With a micro internship, however, there's always going to be a specific deliverable, something that you set out to do and is completed as opposed to ongoing. And when you're done with the deliverable, you're done with the micro internship. Most of these are somewhere between 10 and 40 hours in total, and they are always paid. We know a lot of folks can't afford to spend their time on something unless that time is compensated. Looks like that's about a third of you in the room today identified that as a challenge. So typically, the employers are the ones paying for these projects, but how you get paid is a little unique because regardless of what company you're working with, and we have all different sorts of companies and departments who post these projects on Parker Dewey, but regardless of what company you're doing the project for, you get paid by Parker Dewey. The employer pays us, and then we take care of dispersing that payment to you when the project is over. Why is it set up this way? It just makes it easier for everyone involved and lends a little bit of a sense of safety for all of you. This way, employers can use these micro internships as a way to engage talent and audition for longer term roles. And they could maybe try out 5 or 10 candidates, but they don't have to onboard all of them since their longer term goal is probably to extend something longer term to just one. So easier for them. And for you all, if you want to try something with a company that wasn't already on their radar, unfortunately, there are a lot of scams out there, and you want to make sure you're never giving your sensitive information to somebody that seems sketchy. With Parker Dewey micro internships, you don't have to give your payroll information to random strangers. You give it to Parker Dewey, and regardless of what company you're working with, we are the only ones that need that information to process your payment. The projects on our platform are always aligned with skills or knowledge that y'all are building in your degree programs. That again involves projects from a lot of different departments, industries, but what you won't see are things like paint my fence. Technically, there's a deliverable, but not really in line with the higher education related opportunities we're trying to help you attain when it comes to Parker Dewey. And most of these projects, over 90%, in fact, are remote. So I see about a quarter of you said opportunities I'm interested in aren't near me. There's also another about 10% of you that said, I don't have transportation. Fear not. You can do these from wherever you have a Wi-Fi connection, whenever it meets your schedule, really, as long as you're meeting deadlines when you're selected for a project, as long as, again, you have that reliable Wi-Fi connection. So, having established what these micro internships are, hopefully the benefits are clear, but really just want to emphasize that accessibility tends to be a big one. Even if you don't have a lot of time, transportation, or clarity about you want to do, these micro internships are available. It's real experience too. Now, When you get paid, like I said, regardless of the company you're working with, you get paid by Parker Dewey. What that also means is that Parker Dewey is the employer of record. So it is real experience. You can add it to your resume, you can add it to LinkedIn, but when you do so, regardless of what company you do the project for, the employer of record is going to be Parker Dewey. Now, if the company gives you permission, you can name the company in the description. Again, we, Parker Dewey, are the employer of record. Again, that flexibility to be able to do this whenever and wherever after you get selected, as long as you're meeting deadlines. And you are encouraged for most projects to connect with the professional at the company when the project kicks off. So you are expanding your network, getting the chance to ask questions and get context about what you're doing. For those of you who said, I do not know what I want to do, about 10% of you who are here today, this is a great way to try things without having to start with a long commitment. So you know when you're making a decision about those longer term opportunities, like traditional internships or full-time roles, you've already tried things out to know if that's something you're going to like and somewhere where your skills fit. And for many employers, the reason they use Parker Dewey is as a sort of recruiting tool. They're either using it to help build awareness of their company with talent like yourself, or they could be using it as a way to audition you for something longer term. Whether they have a traditional internship or a full-time role, they might be using the micro-internship to identify what talent has the skills we need for this longer term opportunity. So, while not a guarantee, there's that possibility that something longer term could be waiting for you on the other end of the experience. And I know I already mentioned it, but highlighting it again because we know it's important. For every project you're selected for and complete, you get paid. Now, I also want to take a quick moment to review who can do micro internships because I know everyone has so much on their plates. If you do not qualify for some reason, I want to be respectful of your time. So, who can do micro internships? You do need to be at least 18 years old. That is a hard and fast rule because Parker Dewey micro interns are paid as independent contractors. So, if you're not 18 yet, we'll see you back here on your 18th birthday. These are also limited to students or recent graduates. There's not really a cutoff for recent graduates as long as you're still trying to figure out your next step. But students or graduates of US-based higher education institutions that are accredited. We also have a few partner boot camps. If you are from a boot camp, you will know because when you go to fill out the education section in your profile, you'll see your boot camp pop up. But it is limited to those US-based accredited institutions. Now, I often get questions about international students, and it differs from institution to institution. Often, international students can do micro internships, but they do need work authorization, so either CPT or OPT, and that's the reason it differs from school to school. Every school has their own process for anything credit bearing in terms of when things need to be registered by or minimum number of hours needed for credit, those types of rules. So if you are an international student, there's a good chance that you could probably do these, but always check with international student support first to make sure you know what your school's rules are. And undocumented students. All micro interns are independent contractors of Parker Dewey. And what that means is this is available to you too, as long as you have a valid ITIN number. And some of you may even be able to get paid to do a micro internship at no cost to the hosting company. Now, sometimes I get confusion over this. There's never any cost to you to do micro internships. No cost to create your account, no cost to apply, no cost to do them. In fact, again, you get paid if you're selected for and complete a project. So that never changes. What these opportunities influence is where that pay comes from. So often, again, the employer is the one who is covering the cost of the project and making sure you get paid, but it comes through Parker Dewey. We're going to talk about some programs today that have a third party that will cover that payment. So where that becomes relevant for today's conversation is if you qualify for those programs, then you can say to an employer, hey, you can engage me in a paid project. I get paid, and it's at no cost to you. So it's just something nice to have in your pocket. I see someone asking, do these, and reminder, there's no internships on Parker Dewey. It's exclusively micro internships, but do they help people gain experience in working for a specific career? Like if they want to do I think you micro-internship because they believe it to be a way to gain experience towards becoming a doctor or a specific worker. Great question. So what you're going to see already on the platform, that's dictated by the needs of the employers who are already using Parker Dewey. But for your question, you are in the correct place because what this webinar today is primarily going to be about after we get past these basics is how you can identify, well, what companies, if I'm not already seeing things I'm interested on Parker Dewey, what companies are going to help me build the type of project experience I'm looking for that is going to make me a more competitive candidate for my target career goals? And how can I encourage them to use this platform to create that opportunity for me? So, short answer, yes. Longer answer, hopefully helpful, and you are in the right place. So now that we have covered those basics, we're going to do a review of those program opportunities that you can use to encourage employers to engage you in a micro-internship. We're going to talk about how to reach out to companies of interest to take that step, encourage them. And then we're going to talk about how to apply for the resulting micro-internships. Even though you have done the outreach, they probably almost certainly are posting because you did that. They want to engage you. You still need to make sure that you're going through the proper process on the platform because, again, we're the employer of record and it all needs to go through that system. So, talking about those program options, I just launched another poll just to get a sense of who in the room qualifies for the programs we currently have available. So, while you are taking a look at that poll, I'm just going to do a really quick high-level overview. Kansas program. Now, you do have to be an undergraduate student specifically. This is not available for the most part for graduate students, but if you are an undergraduate student at a public college or university, so emphasizing the public, it does need to be a public Kansas institution. There is some funding there for Kansas based companies. So I see we've got at least one person from a public Kansas, or actually, no, we've got one person from Indiana. Okay, so nobody from Kansas so far. But that next program, that's the Indiana Economic Development Corporation program. Long name, which is why we usually just call it the IEDC. This is open to any students or recent graduates. Recent grads, you are included in this one, of any accredited higher education institution in Indiana. Doesn't matter if it's public, doesn't matter if it's private. If it's accredited, it's higher education, and it's Indiana, and you go there or you went there, then you qualify for that one. So make sure you let us know in the poll if that qualifies. And none of the above. No worries. Micro internships, even if the companies are covering the costs themselves, are still appealing. And we have a brand new, if you've ever come to the webinar before, this is new, so perk up. Brand new opportunity where we still might be able to cover the cost for those employers. So I'm going to share more details. Right. We've got nobody here from Kansas. Folks, later, if you're from Kansas, spend some time taking in this slide and this details, but I'm going to focus on who's in the room today. We have at least one person from Indiana, so I'm going to share the details of this Indiana Economic Development Corporation program. Again, available to any student or recent graduate of an Indiana-based higher education institution, as long as it's an accredited school. And what this does is it allows any employer with a presence in the state of Indiana to engage you in a micro internship as long as that project can reasonably be completed within 20 hours. You will earn $400 if they decide to engage you in one of these projects. Now, I've been told that this is likely to go for a good amount of time. It's while funding lasts, and there's currently not any end in sight. But this is a great opportunity for the student who is here saying, okay, I'm here from Indiana. Pick an employer in your state. If they haven't already taken advantage of this program, they can engage you in a 20-hour project. You get paid. It costs them nothing. Everybody's winning. So for everybody else, no program, no problem. Again, the norm is that employers pay for these projects, and they're happy to do so because it helps them with a host of different goals. It's a cost-effective way to reach talent like yourselves. It's a way without commitment to see if you have the right skills. It's allowing them to build their talent pipeline and reach populations they might have missed otherwise. In short, it's just as good a thing for the employers as it is for you, which is why they are typically happy to cover the costs themselves. But as mentioned, we do have some discretionary funding that even if you don't qualify for the Kansas or Indiana program, we might be able to cover the costs for you. So what's the rules to this funding? if you have already connected with a professional interested in working with you. Now, this is a great thing to bring up today because we're going to talk about how to do that, but you have to have already had a conversation with a company that said, yes, I would be interested in engaging you in a micro internship. And then whatever project you're considering has to reasonably be able to be completed within 15 hours. So let's say you connect with an employer, you say, I'd love to do a project related to marketing. And they're like, you know what? We actually need someone to develop a social media campaign that's going to run over the course of a month. And that project is going to take about 15 hours. Perfect. Now let's say we're interested, but we don't really, have anything specific in mind. You can still submit your goal to do something with that company, and we can work with the company to figure out what an appropriate 15-hour project would be. So just to clarify that point, you either need to already have a project in mind that would take about 15 hours, or the company just needs to be interested and open to the idea of coming up with a project that would take about 15 hours. Now, the rules of this funding are also this needs to be done in 2026. We're recording this right now in June, so we've got plenty of time. I don't anticipate that being an issue for anyone. We want to make sure that this is being used to create new relationships. So the project supervisor, meaning the person representing the hosting company, it cannot be a family member or a peer. So your dad has a business, he's got a project for you. That is great. If you're doing professional work, make sure your dad pays you, but we're not able to cover that through this funding. You have a friend that wants your help on their BFA project. For those who didn't go to art school, that's the Bachelor of Fine Arts, like their final capstone. Great. They're a peer, so this funding will not apply there. It has to be an external professional contact. And then that final detail, the company that you're working with must use the project as a way of determining if your skills are a good fit for something longer term. So if we think back to when I was sharing, why employers use this, it's often because they are trying to make more informed hiring decisions or develop pipelines for longer term opportunities. They want to connect with and hire early career talent. So if you have a company that really isn't looking to hire, they don't have an internship program, unfortunately, that's not something we can cover. But if you have a company that has an internship program or pretty consistently makes longer term hires, and this project is going to help them make a more informed decision about you as a candidate and whether you'd be a good fit, ding, ding, ding. That is the sweet spot for this funding. So, again, we're going to cover today how do you find contacts at companies of interest? How do you encourage them to post a micro internship for you? But I also want to acknowledge there may be some of you that, even as I've been talking, have gone, well, I met with a company at the career fair and I couldn't do their internship, but we had a great connection and maybe they could do this. Let me talk to them. Or maybe you already, have something where you are being considered for something longer term and they were going to have you do something short term before then, but maybe there wasn't budget. Again, it does need to be a process of considering you for something longer term. In short, if you already have something in mind, I just put this form in the chat. What you will do is fill out this form with the details. So obviously we'll want your contact information. We'll want to know what school you're affiliated with. You'll affirm that you understand the rules of this funding, that you have to have already connected with a professional. They have to already have expressed interest in engaging you in a project. That if already defined, the project would take about 15 hours to complete, that you are able to get it done by the end of the year, that the person who would be supervising is a professional external contact, not a member of your family, not a peer, and that the person you're working with is using this to assess your skills with the possibility of something longer term being on the other side. We also want to know if you've already created a Parker Dewey account. Once you've confirmed those things, the next couple pages in this form is just going to ask you to share the details. Who is the employer? What is the contact's name? What is the contact's email? So you will need that to be able to fill out the form. And if you've already identified the project, it's going to ask for some project details. Now, I put the link to that form in the chat. Common question from these webinars is also, will we get these slides afterwards? 100% you will. So you'll also get the form here. So we have talked about what micro-internships are. We've talked about some programs that could cover the costs, making it even easier for you to say to an employer, hey, you should do this with me. It's free and fabulous. Now we're going to talk about how to help you reach out to companies of interest to make this happen. And to reach out to somebody, you really need two things. You need someone to reach out to, and you need something to say to them when you reach out. So, we're going to talk about both of those things. Before we get into those details, though, I want to acknowledge that sometimes folks are hesitant to do this outreach. They might think, what if the professional thinks I'm bothering them? Or what if I don't have the skills necessary yet? Or, what if they get mad at me for pestering? And I want to emphasize a statistic here. 87%. If we were going to give a grade, that's a B plus. That is the vast majority. 87% of employers fill internship slots informally, such as through outreach from a student. So that means majority of internships, they are getting started because a student takes initiative to say, hey, is there an opportunity for me here? And that is something from the Strata Education Foundation, not a statistic that I'm making up. And the same logic applies for these micro internships. Take the initiative, reach out. Worst things they could do is either say thanks but no thanks or not respond at all. I promise nobody is going to respond and be angry at you for reaching out and inquiring. If they did, that would be a first. You'd have to let us know. All right. So, contacts. One of the things that I want you to consider, again, is that you might already have some contacts. If you've gone to a career fair and you've gotten business cards, if a professional has come to talk to your class, if you went to an event at the Center where they had someone speaking to folks, if you've already connected with somebody on LinkedIn, this is a really good place to start because you already have some sort of existing connection. So I encourage you to just take a minute. You may immediately think, I don't know anybody, but just take a minute, reflect. A lot of times there might already be someone that you have the contact information for that would be a great person to reach out to about creating a micro-internship opportunity. But if you take that minute to reflect and you go, no, lady, I genuinely have nobody, that's when we come into finding contacts. So today we are going to use two resources to highlight how you can go about finding these contacts. One is LinkedIn. If you are not already familiar, LinkedIn is a free resource. It's like a social media platform, but for professional connections. So instead of being friends with your grandma, you're connecting with that recruiter that you met at the career fair, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about how to look for those connections. And then Handshake, if you're not already familiar, very similar to LinkedIn. It just tends to be a little bit more focused on early career recruiting. Now, some of you may be at handshake schools, meaning that your institution has established a formal partnership with that platform. Even if you are not at handshake school, it has historically been the case that as long as you have an email address with a .edu, you're still able to use the platform. And if your school uses something else to manage contacts, a lot of the same recommendations and tips and resources we're going to cover today are able to be used on those other platforms. So a lot of this, again, is going to be transferable. These are just two of the most commonly used ones, so that's why they're what we're going to focus on today. But you'll see even across these two platforms, process is very similar. Now, one thing I want to emphasize before we start with LinkedIn is regardless of what platform you're using, it is super duper important before you start this outreach to make sure your profile is up to date. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile, has a photo, that you've got a statement, that you've added some experience. Make sure things or the same things are true about your Handshake profile. Now, I just put a resource in the chat. We've got 10 LinkedIn tips for students and new grads. I always just want to emphasize this first photo is facetious. Unless you are interested in becoming a pet groomer, perhaps not the best photo. So it just gives you tips about how to make sure that your profile is going to be something that employers look at and go, yeah, I am interested in engaging with that talent. So, starting with LinkedIn, we're now going to talk about how to go about finding contacts. Now, there are a couple different ways that you could do this. If you already have a contact in mind, you could search for their name and the name of the company, and that's going to be a good way to go about finding them. But if you don't know anyone, you're starting from scratch, you can think about first, what the company name is, and then try to find folks from there. So we're going to go about it that way, assuming that you do not have any connections. So this is where I'm going to encourage you to use that chat. Anybody, what's your dream company? Like a place you would just love to work, but maybe you don't have any connections there. As long as it's a recognizable company, there are no wrong answers. Now, I will say sometimes if your dream company is a super duper small company, like an entrepreneur, they may not have a presence on LinkedIn yet. So that may be a little bit more challenging, but really any company of decent size is probably going to have a presence on here. So waiting for that engagement in the chat. If somebody doesn't give me a company name in a minute, I'll pick one myself. Perfect. Thank you, Michael. All right, NVIDIA. So we're here on LinkedIn, and here's the link to LinkedIn, y'all, so y'all can take a look at what I'm doing. Oh, I put in that instead of NVIDIA. All right, so you can put in the name of the company. So he said NVIDIA. Now, sometimes it's going to pop up right away. Let's say for some reason it doesn't. I'm not going to click on that. I'm just going to put in the name. And you can see these different filters for what you're looking for. Now, in this case, we're looking for the company, but if you had searched a person's name, you would filter to say, I'm looking for this person. But in this case, company. So I'm going to go ahead and show that filter, even though it wasn't necessarily needed here. And then you're going to click on the company. So this is going to show you some helpful information. One, it's going to show you if you have any connections that work typically at the company. And you can click on this people to see who works there. And there are a couple different ways that you can go about filtering this. You can search by title, you can search by keyword, you can search by school. So a couple ways I would go about filtering this is to maybe search for recruiter. You could search for someone with a title in the department you'd want to work in. You could also search to see if there are any alumni there. So you could search for your school. You can also scroll down and it's going to give you folks that you may know based on other folks you've connected with, based on where you've been. So we've got someone who is early career talent, someone who is in talent acquisition. Now, early career talent, that means they could be early in their career, or it means they could be in charge of recruiting early career talent. It's not really clear. If it's the latter, meaning the second one, then that would be a great person to reach out to. But we don't know. So let's click on their profile and look for more. Right, early career talent, early career and university recruiting professional. Fantastic. So that means this person, their whole role at NVIDIA is to find folks to help them create a pipeline for new graduates in their hiring programs. So this is exactly the type of person you want to reach out to. So after you've found that information, the next thing is to grab a message. Before we do that, just want to show that this, example works for multiple companies. Thank you, Michael, for giving me a place to start. But anybody else have a dream company, just so we can show how this works in multiple ways? While y'all are thinking, I'm still keeping an eye on that chat. I want to show you another way you can go about this. So let's take this a step further and say, I don't even know of a company in my target industry. Like I honestly have no idea. So what you can do is start from this company search, and I just put in, gobbledygook. Right now, I'm getting rid of the extra stuff in the URL to just have this link right here. So this is just showing me companies. And you're going to see some different filters here. One of those filters is going to be industry. You can, yes, there is going to be a recording of this, Michael. It's going to come your way. My goal is today. If not today, it's going to come to you tomorrow. You can filter by industry. You can filter by company size. So let's say I have no idea what company I'd want to work with, but I know that I want a large company. I really want to grow and I want to work in, let's say, financial services, and I want to do that in, I don't know. Let's say Cleveland. I'm in Cleveland. Let's just pick Cleveland. So you can put in those filters and it's going to show you a list of company that meets that criteria. And it's also going to give you some helpful information. So for example, before I even click in, I know, hey, 5 people from my school were hired here. And LinkedIn knows that because of the school information you put on your profile. Again, that's the importance of making sure your profile is complete before you start these efforts. So I can see, wow, a lot of people from my school work here. Makes sense. I went to school in the Cleveland area for as well. So I can do that same thing we did before. I can click on the company and I can go to this people tab and I can see who works there. I could use more filters, but I can see again people I may know and I could search by different titles. So, something else to be aware of, you all may have noticed these little numbers. So, I've got a lot of seconds here. So, I don't know anyone that works at this company, but I do know a lot of people that know people that work at this company. And LinkedIn is telling me that. So, it's saying to me, hey, you don't know Heather Nelson, but you are connected to Jared and Dan and somebody else, and they know this person. So this is another way that you can get more likely to get a response from folks. Because what I would do if I really wanted to reach out to, let's say I want to reach out to Rachel, so I would say, ooh, I know Matt, and Matt knows Rachel. I would reach out to Matt and say, hey, Matt, my friend, my pal, I would really love to get an experience with AML Right Source, and I see that you know Rachel. Any chance you can reach out to her and put in a good word? This is networking. This is using your network. And it's not, I know it may feel cringy, and I don't know why it feels cringy. As humans, sometimes we just get anxious about using things like our network, but I promise it's not. Most of the time, the folks that you're connected with, they accepted your invitation to connect because they want to help you. Your professors may know people, the people that you work with at your job on campus may know people. Encourage them to connect you if they have the connections. Most people are going to be really excited to help. So let's say I'm looking at these titles and going, I don't know that these are the right people. Now, actually, a talent acquisition specialist probably is the right person. But let's say I don't see any titles. There are a couple keywords you could search for here that are going to help you find the right people. Usually, we're going to be looking for folks who work in recruiting or HR. So you might try a couple things depending on how that company titles their folks, and you might need to try something different. So you could try, for example, recruiter. When we do that here, we're seeing again these 77 different folks. So there's a lot of things going on. I see that they have the title creative, depending on what type of role I'm interested in. That might be a good one to go about. If recruiter doesn't bring anything up, you could try the word talent. Folks are often known as talent acquisition specialists in relevant types of roles. If that still doesn't bring up anything, maybe they're such a small company they don't have dedicated recruiters, you could search for human resources or you could search for titles that are likely to be in the departments that you are interested in. So I've got this filter here. I can go to where they studied to see by any chance, is there someone that went to my alma mater that is a recruiter? And I can see there's one person. Now, they don't actually seem to have recruiter in their title now. It's possible that they made a job change. But I can see they went to where I went to school. They currently work at AML Right Source. And at one time they were a recruiter. That's why they showed up. They're in a different role at AML, so that probably wouldn't be the right person, but it shows you how you can do a little bit of trial and error. You can add filters, you can remove them. So let's say I want to make sure, yes, this company is in Cleveland, but maybe I want to make sure I'm reaching out to somebody who's in Cleveland since it seems like the company has an international presence. That's another filter I could add. And look here, we've got someone in human resources. That might be a great way to reach out. This person is also in Cleveland. They have followers, so they've got a lot going on. They're at AML Right Source, obviously. That's my filter, and I can see their current title. So, an onboarding coordinator, this is probably based on their experience, going to be a great person to reach out to. Now, I didn't see anybody else in the chat asking for a specific company. So I am going to keep my fingers crossed that you all, oh, Thank you, Erica. The rest of you, I'm going to assume that you are already doing this on LinkedIn while we're talking and you have found folks on your own. So I see we've got Expedidor. So I'm going to go back to this main page. Doo, doo, doo. I'm going to put in Expedidor. I'm going to use my company filter. So we've got a few different types of expeditors here. Erica, is it medical device? Is it real estate? Or is it not showing up at all? Sorry, I know I'm putting you on the spot, depending on how quickly you can type in the chat. For the sake of keeping the webinar going, I'm going to assume that it's Expedidor Systems. Expeditor. Okay, spelling is key. Okay, so now we've got a couple different places here. Maybe it's truck transportation, maybe it's IT. I'm going to assume this one's local to the United States, so I'm just going to assume this one. Now, if you've searched for a company and you're having trouble finding it, again, please feel free to update me in the chat if you feel confident you can do so quickly. Then there are different ways you could go about searching. You could filter by industry, by location, but I'm going to assume this is the one. You can do the same thing. This is a smaller company. So you can see different folks that work here under people. So they've got branding and communications, they've got a COO. So you can do the filters here. Now, kind of adjusted. Sometimes when it's a smaller company, it doesn't give you that filter view we saw before. It's going to be slightly adjusted like what we're seeing now, but those filters are still here. So you could come over to this side, you could filter by school, you could do those other things. But since there are so fewer people, you're probably better off just to use something like title if they have it, or industry. Often recruiting is going to be a good call. Now, again, with smaller companies, I'm probably not going to get something, but let's try it. So, billing specialist, kind of in that area, but not really the person you're going to want to reach out to. So, this is a perfect example of one of those where you're going to want to look at the folks who work at this company and think about, who is someone most aligned to what I want to be doing. So if you were interested in a billing micro internship, that person we had would be the one. But in other cases, you might want to look at these folks and their titles and make a different decision depending on what your particular career goals are. All right. So we have talked about how to find folks. And again, you're also going to get these slides that cover the ways that we went around finding these different people. Once you have found contacts, so we have a couple here that we identified from the examples, then you're going to want to request a connect and add a note. Now, a caveat about this, folks. When it comes to LinkedIn, you only get, I think it's maybe 3 opportunities to do this a month at no cost. And y'all are students and life is expensive. So I am never going to encourage you to pay for anything. If you decide personally that there's value in LinkedIn Premium, more power to you. But I instead encourage you to just make sure you're being selective about who you're reaching out to. So that's one reason. We're also going to cover how to do this in Handshake as well. There's no such limit in Handshake, but with LinkedIn, you only get 3 a month. So make sure you are using them intentionally. So we're going to talk now about, well, what am I sending these people once I've identified someone I reach out to? And that's where we're trying to make this really easy and have templates for you to help you answer that question. So here are the templates in the chat. I encourage you to take a look. Now, which template you are going to use is going to depend on whether you have a program available to you. So again, we have that Kansas program, our one person who's here that's from Indiana. You're going to click on this for the Indiana program. There might be a program specific to your school. We have a handful of those. Encourage you to click on that program page. If you click on that and you happen to go to Eastern University, or if you happen to go to Central New Mexico Community College or Tarleton State, congratulations, you have a program. You have an opportunity to perhaps say to your employer, depending on the details of the program, hey, friend, you can engage me at no cost. As you can see, there's only a handful here, so check to make sure, but most of you are going to fall into this none of the above category. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to click on. So this is where you will find templates. So with the LinkedIn template, you'll notice this is really short. That's because we only have about 200 characters to work with on LinkedIn, and they are not flexible with that. So you're going to copy this template, and we're going to go back. Earlier, we had identified this Milan person as a good person to reach out to. You're going to go to connect. You're going to add a note and see it's going to give you that alert. 3 personalized invitations remaining for the month. We're already aware, but thank you, LinkedIn. And you're going to paste in that note and you're going to make sure you customize it. So in this case, hello, I'm very interested in NVIDIA. Would you consider posting a short-term professional project for a whatever you are? I'm going to put in like computer science student like me. And then what you're directing them to is this information about micro-internships. It's going to highlight that this is going to allow them to engage with you fast, fair, and effectively. And those are things that typically folks in these recruiting type roles are very interested in doing. So within 200 characters, this is giving them the base information. And then you're going to hit send. Pretty intuitive. I see I've got a question. Although I attend college in Indiana, if you're not from or don't live there, could you do the Indiana one? Now, as long as, even if you're not currently living in Indiana, if you're a recent graduate from a school in Indiana, you can still do the program, but only with companies that have a presence in the state of Indiana. Um, Hopefully that answers the question, but if you want to give me a more specific circumstance, I can definitely weigh in. All right. So you can do that again with up to 3 folks a month. When the month resets, you could try it with another 3 folks, but this is how you can use LinkedIn to find contacts and reach out to them. So we have done the LinkedIn step. Now let's talk about another platform and how we can use that to do something very similar. So I'm going to get rid of some of these extra tabs I have up because honestly, it's just too many. And now we're going to take a look at Handshake. Now, if you do not already have a Handshake account, I think, let me put in, I think I've got a link in here actually. Create an account for free. This is probably going to take me to my login. Yes, it is, but I think this will also take you to log in if you do not have one already. And you're going to see over here on the left a couple different tabs. There's going to be one for people and one for employers. Now, you technically could use either, but what I've noticed about the people tab is this is kind of including everybody. So you might find other folks that are current students in the people tab. If you focus on the employers tab, that's going to more quickly get you to folks that work at the companies that you're interested in. So let's say, since folks were a little slower on the chat before, I'm going to use the examples I've already gotten. Let's say we're interested in a video. We can go here. Let's say we did the LinkedIn thing. We didn't find anyone that was a good fit. We can find NVIDIA here. And again, you can use additional filters. In this case, it came right up. And you can see if there are people here. So not every company is going to have this, but you can use it if there are. And you can then potentially reach out to these people. So here we have 2 contacts. One is their university team, so that's university recruiting folks. Perfect. And then we have somebody who does university recruiting. Both of these are great contacts. Oftentimes, the people in this people section, as long as they have it updated, are going to be. So here's what came up when I clicked on those folks. And you'll see for both of them, they have the ability to message. Same thing over here. You have the ability to message. And where this is kind of nice is we don't have that character limit here. We can get a little bit longer. So that's where we're going to, again, grab that messaging template. I closed one too many tabs. And this time we're going to go on the left. Now, this is the same template you'll use if you already have a professional contact or, on Handshake since we don't have that limit. So copy and paste this message all the way up to that highlighted piece. Whoop, start from the top here. Grab it, and let's say we're going to message Lauren. Take the time to update the context. Hello, Lauren. Now, if this is someone you already met and you're emailing them, say, it was great connecting with you at the career fair. Thank you for presenting to my class, whatever it is. If you don't have that connection, get rid of that part. Now, I'm a sophomore studying computer engineering at UNC. I'm reaching out because I would love to do a coding internship with NVIDIA, but What's making that a barrier? Why aren't you already doing an internship with them? Are you not in the right area? Can you not afford to travel to their area? Do you not qualify for their internships yet because you're only a second year student? Let them know. Why am I not already able to engage? Maybe you applied, but you weren't selected. I unfortunately wasn't selected, but I'd still love to be able to demonstrate my skills. And this gives you examples of different barriers you could highlight. You know the reason why you're not currently doing something with them, so just make that clear to them. Then we've got our next statement. I was wondering if you'd consider posting a Parker Dewey micro internship. You're giving them, it keeps, let me make this bigger. Dun, 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 dun. Right, having some user difficulties. So Handshake's doing this really fun thing right now where it's not letting me scroll down super far. So you might copy and paste this into a Google Doc if you encounter a similar issue. So you're pasting it in, but basically you're letting them know, hey, I'd love to do this with you. If you're interested in posting a project, here's what you would do as a next step. But also let me know if you plan to do this. So I'm going to go to my template here just so you can read the rest. If they already have a project in mind, ask them to let you know more because you're also highlighting that there's a possibility that the project could be funded by a third party. Now, again, only use this if you think that this employer could meet the previously established criteria, that they have longer term roles that are typically available, whether it's traditional internships or full-time roles. If they have an early career talent recruiting person, like we're seeing with NVIDIA, chances are they meet that criteria. Don't stress yourself out too much about it. But if it seems like they do, say there's even a possibility that the project could be funded by a third party, allowing me to get paid at no cost to you. And then you're asking them, if you have a project in mind, let me know. And then if they respond and say, well, we could do this or we could do that, or I'm not really sure what we would do, but I'm interested in learning more, that's when then you can say, well, I can submit this for funding. Could I have your email address so I can do so? Or do you want to set up a call so we can talk about it? This is helping you connect with that person to get that process of creating an opportunity started. And then, just like on LinkedIn, you hit send, you get the message out there. So we've talked about how to find contacts in both of these places, very similar to what we saw with LinkedIn. You can use filters, even if you don't already have a company in mind. You can search by location, you can search by industry, you can search by company size. The process is going to be very similar. Sometimes the company is going to have folks under that people section. Sometimes they may not. If you try in one place and don't find a contact, you could try in another. But this is just why we do two, to show examples of where one platform might have information that another does not. So it can be to your benefit to use multiple. We've talked about how to reach out after finding contacts. Now you may be thinking, well, this is a Parker Dewey webinar. Why am I not just reaching out to contacts on Parker Dewey? Our goal with Parker Dewey is to make sure it is very focused on the opportunities that are already available. So there's no searching for employers on Parker Dewey. There's just the opportunities that you could apply for in that moment. So the short answer is one, it's just not set up to be able to do that. And the other is with micro internships, we want to make sure it's an equitable process. So we want to make sure, even if you apply for a micro internship that you see on Parker Dewey, you're not getting in the employer's ear in some other way. We want the employers to make their decisions based on the information you've put in the Parker Dewey platform, because that means everyone has the same opportunity to share information. So if there's an opportunity already in Parker Dewey, it's actually against Parker Dewey's rules to reach out to that company outside of the platform. Now, again, if you are reaching out to the company first, they don't already have something posted, and you're reaching out to them because you want to see something posted, that's okay. You're not violating any rules because they're not already posting something on Parker Dewey. That's just in place if something is already posted. And again, that's because the goal is for it to be an equitable application process if that opportunity is being put out there for everyone on Parker Dewey. Now, sometimes you're not going to get a response to that first email or first message. Sometimes you may not ever get a response. It's frustrating, but that is the way of things. But a follow-up never hurts. One appropriately timed follow-up sometimes can make all the difference. So in those message templates, you are going to see, if I go back to the note program, under each initial message, you're going to see a follow-up. Now, LinkedIn is a little tough because you can only send a follow-up if they accept your request to connect. Hopefully they do. Even if they don't respond to your message, if they've accepted your connection request, then you can send this longer message. That character limit goes away. If they do not accept your request to connect, unfortunately, that is the end of the road with that LinkedIn contact. But again, that's why you have other platforms you can use. You can try other ways to reach other folks. But if they do accept, this is where you can send this message. Thank you for accepting my invitation to connect. More details about what you would love to do with them. A lot of those things that you would have put in the first message and is in the email one, but you couldn't because LinkedIn had that character limit. And encouraging them again to take those next steps and also mentioning, hey, might even have an opportunity for me to get paid for this at no cost to you. Over here on the left, after that initial email, give it at least a week. Sometimes folks are on vacation. Sometimes they have a work event or work priority that they need to focus on. And if you follow up more quickly than a week, you run the risk of them perhaps getting frustrated. Now, like I said, even if you email them on their busiest day of the year the first time, they don't, or they know that you don't know that that's a busy time of year. Don't worry about upsetting them with the first email. But you want to give them a reasonable amount of time, again, at least a week between the first email and the follow-up, just so they don't feel like they're being bombarded or get frustrated. So at the follow-up, you're just saying, hey, I wanted to make sure you saw that message. If you have something in mind, here's more resources, and asking them if you do post something, please let me know because the whole goal is I want to do an experience for you. And again, if they respond to any of these messages with interest, actually, I would be interested in this. Here's a project, or I don't know. If you get their email address and say, hey, would you be open to me considering this or submitting this for Parker Dewey so I can see if I could get this funded, that next step, and what you'll see here in the yellow, is to submit the details via this form. Once you do that, we will take the next step to connect with the employer, make sure they understand how this works, and help them get that project posted for you. And since you filled out the form and we've got your contact information, we're going to let you know right away because that company is going to want to engage you. You're the one that shared it, you're the one that put it out there. If they have any questions, feel free to connect them with us as well. You see my email address in here. So we want to help you create this opportunity, loop us in so we can pick up the ball and get it over the finish line. We also have monthly webinars for employers. So if they're like, nah, I don't want to talk to anyone yet, but I am curious, is there somewhere where I could go for more information? We do these once a month. So share that with the link with them if they want to learn more. Set a reminder for yourself. You can see that link as well. So you can see the next one is July 9th. Let's say you send a message tomorrow. They're like, I'm curious, but I got a lot going on between now and the 4th. Where can I learn more? If you send them this link, send yourself a calendar reminder. On July 10th, follow up. Hey, were you able to go to that webinar? Do you have any questions? I'd love to put you in contact with Parker Dewey. And this is really the kind of thing this webinar is all about. You guys taking the initiative to make your own opportunities happen. So you also want to make sure that you are ready if the company takes the encouragement and puts that opportunity out there for you. So once they post, once we let you know, if we're the ones letting you know, or once they let you know, once anybody says, hey, the micro internship is up, go get your application in. And to make sure you're ready to do that, you'll want to make sure that your profile is complete, that you've thought about how to answer that question, why should we select you? It should be an easy one to answer because you had a reason to reach out for this company in the first place, so you have probably a pretty good reason why they should pick you. And again, since you were the one that reached out to them first, it's not a violation of our terms of service for you to let them know directly outside of the Parker Dewey platform, I have applied. Now, if you didn't know this contact before and you found a company on Parker Dewey and you applied and then you went and found a contact, that's the no-no. But since you found them first, as soon as you submit the application for their project, let them know, hey, it's in. I'm excited. Let's do this. And don't forget, too, there are other opportunities already on Parker Dewey. So while you're applying for those ones that hopefully come about because of your initiation, also take a look at the ones that are already there. See if they're a good fit for you, too. And we also have lots of resources for submitting a quality application, making sure that profile is ready, tips for how to best answer that question, why should we select you, and other resources. As mentioned before, you are going to get this recording and these slides in a follow-up either today or tomorrow, depending on how the rest of my day goes. These are all buttons, so you will have these resources at your fingertips. But for today, just bringing things full circle, we see some of those students that we saw at the beginning of the webinar who are emphasizing, I don't have a lot of time. I don't have transportation. I'm not sure what I want to do, so I just want to try something real quick, not necessarily do a full-blown internship. And you see those same students here at the end emphasizing how this helped them address those challenges. If you are inspired by seeing how other students have created their career paths using Parker Dewey micro-internships, I encourage you to check out these success stories. We have students from all different majors, all sizes of institutions, different geographic locations, different backgrounds, first generation students, non-traditional students, student athletes, recent graduates, master's students. There's a lot of success stories there. So if you want to see how other folks have done it, that's a good place to read about it. And again, my biggest advice before you do the reaching out is to make sure you are ready. Make sure that profile is complete. Once your profile is ready, start doing that outreach to the companies, finding the contacts. We also have other resources on our Parker Dewey LinkedIn page. Just encourage you, kind of a side note, give that a follow because it's got good content that it's notifying me about. But let me go ahead and put the link for you all to view in the chat. It'll be easy for you to give it a follow while you're in there looking for employers. And we're going to be keeping an eye out for that form. We'll make sure that form is included in the follow-up. Since the majority of you are not an Indiana or Kansas student, that means that you could potentially use that funding that's open to anybody if it's submitted through that form and we agree, this is something that meets our criteria. So keep an eye out for that as well. With that, folks, just want to say thank you so much for your time today. I really hope this was helpful, and hopefully we'll have some more success stories to add to our library about some of you in the very near future.